Hello and welcome to another lesson brought to you by LearnDrumsLive.com. In today's lesson, we're going to look at a creative way in which Alan Dawson used to teach his students, a way in which to use Ted Reed's syncopation. He used that method a lot, where he came up with really creative ideas to use Ted Reed's syncopation, and play different things with the drum set. But we're going to look at one particular example that I really thought was pretty cool, and I think you will too. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so here's how this concept works. If you look at the measure on the screen, it's made up an eighth note, a quarter note, eighth note, quarter note, eighth note, eighth note. And this is the first measure taken out of Ted Reed's syncopation on page 42, at least the book that I have. I know it's changed layouts a couple times, but page 42 of my book, eighth note, quarter note, eighth note, quarter note, eighth note, eighth note. So what he would have his students do is he'd have them play a particular pattern on the kit. And in this case, we're going to play kind of a bombo bass drum, where you have the bass drum in the and I'm going to add the kick drum on the one. And we'll play a pattern between our left hand, between the side stick and the tom. And how we're going to use syncopation is, that's going to dictate what we do with our right hand. So the first thing you got to learn is the pattern here, which is just going to be, that's it. Okay? Now how do we apply this, or how do we use syncopation with this? Well, the right hand, what's going to happen is, if it's an eighth note, it's going to play it on the cymbal, right? And if it's a quarter note, we're going to play it on the bell. So the first measure we're looking at would be this. Okay? So if you apply that concept with the pattern, it sounds like this. That's it. Let me play it a little bit slower, okay? So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Just the bell by itself, or the ride cymbal by itself. Okay, so that's a pretty cool thing to come up with creative ride cymbal patterns. Now let's look at another measure, and this time we'll play a different pattern with our left hand and right foot and left foot. Okay, so look at a different pattern with the right hand, and let's change up what we're doing with the other parts of our body on this next example. Okay, so here's another example using this kind of technique. But instead of doing that particular kick drum and snare to tom pattern we played in the last example, this time we're going to play a samba type pattern with our feet, so that kind of thing. Okay? And same idea, long notes get the bell of the cymbal, short notes to get the body of the cymbal. But now we're going to play the fill-in eighth notes with our left hand. So if we look at the example on the screen, it'd be like this. Okay, so that's a pretty cool thing to work on as well. Okay, so remember that example is playing samba pattern with the feet. Okay, playing the same thing with the ride cymbal, right? And then we're going to fill in with the eighth notes. All right, you know what? Since we're on a roll here, let's look at one more. Okay, so this last example, which is also an Alan Dawson concept, play along with syncopation, is a little different than the last two, actually. Kind of changing it up a little bit here, where before, of course, we were playing the everything on the ride cymbal, either the bell or the body. But in this example, Mr. Dawson came up with the idea of basically taking the same type of concept, where you have a short note and a long note, right? And if it's a short note, like an eighth note, you would play kick drum and hi-hat like this. If it was a long note, you do the same thing, except you're going to open and close the hi-hat. So it'd be like this. Okay? And then in between, you play eighth notes. So we're going to do two measures. We'll loop two measures. And that's going to sound something like this. So look at the measures on the screen. We'll use the first measure and the second measure that we used before, but now we're going to loop it. And that would sound something like this. Okay? So that's a pretty cool idea as well. So let's do it a little bit up to speed. So a little quicker, it would sound like this. A little bit quicker, something like this. Okay, so that's it. All right, so I really suggest that you check out some other Alan Dawson teachings. There's a great book written by John Ramsey, who was one of his students. It's called The Drummer's Complete Vocabulary by Alan Dawson. It's an absolutely excellent book. And these are some of the concepts in this book that Alan Dawson taught to Mr. Ramsey as well as his other students. So I hope you enjoy this. Until next time, thanks for stopping by.